Matt's Garage here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to clean and condition your leather. I'm going to be doing this on my new project, my '79 Cadillac Eldorado. And the seats actually aren't too bad on it. The driver's seat does have some wear, but there's no actual tears in any of them. And so they could really clean up pretty nice. So the first step in doing this is going to be to obviously get all the junk out, and I have a door panel off, so I'll just put it out on the ground and clean it on the ground. But yeah, get all the loose garbage and floor mats and everything cleared out and vacuum everything. And when I say everything, I mean you pull back around these little buttons and these cracks, you pull them back to expose the seams, and you vacuum along there with the crevice tool and get all that grit out of there and stuff. You don't want to be working that into your seat as you're cleaning it. I'll just show you the driver's seat over here. And it's got some wear on it, but it'll still look a lot better once it's all cleaned up. And the back seat looks about like the passenger seat. It's really not too bad. I think it will clean up nice. So to do this, I'm going to be using this Meguiar's rich leather, Meguiar's Gold Class. It's a pretty common product. You should be able to find it at, well, I get it at Canadian Tire here in Canada, but I'm just thinking in the US, probably Pep Boys or something like that would carry this product. Anyways, I really like Meguiar's products, so that's normally what I use. And I've used this on 3 different cars before, and I've been thrilled with the results. So I use this brush to work it into the leather. It's actually intended as a upholstery cleaning brush for doing like fabric upholstery work. And the bristles are just a little stiffer than on like this kind of little hand broom here. So if you have one of these hand brooms, if that's all you got, you could use that. I have this brush here, and it's for like spot cleaning your carpet, and it's a bit stiffer than I'd use, but I just err on the side of caution there is what I'm trying to say. Go with a softer bristle if that's all you've got. And so I worked the cleaner into the leather with that, and that kind of works all the dirt loose, and then I'll use microfiber towel to absorb up the dirt and the excess cleaner. You can have it a little damp when you start is probably good, because you don't want it to totally dry out the leather again. You want some of that cleaner to absorb in, and I'll show you that once we get started with that process. So I'm going to be using my modified Karcher vacuum here. It's actually a commercial vacuum that I stuffed a central vac motor into. Pretty cool little vacuum. So, and then you want to make sure, because I have a metal end on yours, maybe if you got a shop vac with the plastic end, you can just use the end, but because I have a metal end, I'm going to go ahead and use this crevice tool on here to protect the seats from getting scraped up. Okay, YouTube, I'm just going to start by vacuuming out the big debris. I'm not really going to clean the carpet. I'm going to throw the carpet out later, but I want to vacuum it all anyways. So here's kind of what I mean when I say you got to pull back. See how I'm pulling this back, and look at all that crud in there. So you want to do that everywhere and get all that crud vacuumed out of there everywhere before you start cleaning and working all that junk into the seats. I really think that's what busts a lot of these old leather seats apart, is this all the junk that builds up in the seams, and then it pretty well bursts the seam apart. So okay, YouTube, well, here's all the junk I got out of the inside, and I'm all done vacuuming it now, and wow, it sure cleaned up nice just with the vacuum. I'm actually thinking that maybe this carpet might be salvageable after all. I may be able to clean that up and use it. I think I'm going to give that a shot. Even the seats look a little better after vacuuming them, but they definitely need a good cleaning. Door panel's pretty nasty. The Meguiar's leather cleaner works pretty good on vinyl and plastic as well, so I'm going to do the whole works while I'm at it. And if you're wondering why I'm doing this before I'm even getting the car running, well, I kind of want to see what I got for an interior here. It's the one thing I can't afford to replace, and as far as getting bits and pieces for it, I kind of just want to compile my list of what I do and do not need, and getting in here and cleaning it will give me a good chance to look around and find those items, and also see how these seats clean up in case I run across the better set somewhere or something. I got to know what I have here. And then, you know, if I tear it all apart and take it out of the car, when I go to put it back in, that way it'll all be clean and ready to go back in. So this stuff's quite greasy, so try to avoid spraying it on the carpet or anything, but what I do is I spray it directly on the brush, like that. And then you just start working it into the leather like this. I like to use the circular pattern just because it gets the bristles worked into all the little crevices and all the pores in the leather. And normally I would be wearing gloves to do this. It's a good idea, but it's really hot out here. I'm doing this outside today, and so gloves just weren't an option. I was sweating too much in them. But and another thing is you want to make sure that you're doing this in a area at a time where the car is able to dry out really good inside again. You never want to leave your car wet inside, so you know, that's why I'm doing this outside today on a hot sunny day when I can leave the car open and let it dry out really good afterwards. Okay, so like on this edge here where you got this piping, you want to go like that. You really want to work it in there so that the bristles get right in behind the piping. And you don't have to just go over it once. You can go over it, you know, as many times as you want until you feel like you can't get any more improvement, because what I normally like to do is go over it once really quick and sort of wipe off all the dirt that scrubs out of it, and then I'll spray my brush down again and I'll go over it again, and then I'll spend a long time on it really working that step into the seat before I wipe it again. And so that's kind of like the first step, is to clean it, you know, the quick once over, and then after that you spend some time on it to work the cleaner in and condition it, and that'll soften up the leather and it will bring the natural luster back into the leather. You can already see that that's looking a lot better than it did. It's not 100% yet, and I'm going to keep going over it, and I'll show you my results when I'm done. Okay, well, we got our first seat done here. The passenger seat's all done, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It's not perfect, but as I already said before, it's not going to be perfect, but it's good enough for what I need. Did the armrest too. See, there's like a black spot there that won't come out. A few things like that. But there's a couple little cracks starting out, but now that I've conditioned it and re-softened the leather, that should buy it a lot of time, prevent it from getting more cracked up. And I should mention too, when you're doing this, you want to just work a small panel at a time. Like I kind of work these squares here, and that's what you want to do. You want to split the seat up, because if you get too much of it all covered in cleaner and the cleaner starts to dry on there, then it's not going to be very nice. It's going to be all patchy looking when it's done, and you probably won't get the dirt removed evenly, etc., etc. So just work a small area at a time, divide it into thirds or whatever, and then move on when you're done a panel. And I start it on the door panel here just to show you how it's going to clean up. I'm going to finish the seats before I do the door panels, but I think you can clearly see where I stopped cleaning around there. And you can see the difference of how nicely it's going to clean up. And again, it's probably not going to be 100% perfect, but it's going to look 100 times better than it did. Another thing, when you're using this product, make sure you're shaking it often. It can settle out, so give it a good shake. And when you're finally done, like a seat, and you've got everything the way you want it, you've gone back over any problem areas again and reworked them until you're sure you got them as good as they can be, then you want to just take your rag and go back over it all and wipe it all again, because you'll probably have some splatters and some overspray in places, and you don't want that to dry on there, because it will end up being a glossy spot or whatever on the seat. It won't, it needs to be evenly covered in the conditioner so that it will dry even, and it will have an even sheen to it when it's dry. So there's the rag I've been using just to show you how dirty it got. I'm going to switch to a new one now. Fresh, clean one. Okay, well, we got the first little bit of the driver's seat done here, which is the worst, so I wanted to show you. I've kind of cleaned up to this seam, and so you can see the difference. I think it's quite dramatic. It's still worn, but it looks a lot cleaner, a lot fresher than over here than it does over here. I'm pretty happy with that anyways myself. And this does take a lot of time. Like, I spent a good hour, probably over an hour, vacuuming the car, and then I've already been at this for over an hour as well. And I've only really got 1.5 seats cleaned. So gives you an idea. It's pretty well an all-day job to do this properly on a car like this. Okay, well, I'm all done with the seats, and I think they turned out pretty good. The driver's seat has been repaired here before. Somebody's sprayed a vinyl dye on it, and that's why I just can't get this area to improve anymore. But the reason they dyed it is because the finish was worn off as well, so it was kind of a lost cause anyways, and you can see there's a seam coming apart here. I'm probably going to try and stitch that up later on, because other than that, there's really nowhere where it's actually coming apart. And then I'll just show you in the back here. Turned out really nice. Ignore the carpet, I still have to clean the carpet. And yeah, it's got that one bad patch in it, but I can put a floor mat up over that. Pretty good for 38 years old. It took me about 4 hours, and I used about 3/4 of that bottle of cleaner to do this. So, but this is a pretty extreme case. Most cars aren't going to be quite this dirty. So, and you know, I went over some of the seats, like the driver's seat. I went over about 5 times to try and get as much improvement as I could. And every time you do that, it gets a little nicer because the conditioner works in better and better too. So that's what you do if you've got a bad area. Just keep going over it, and you'll notice it'll get better and better. You'll also notice it looks a little better now that it's completely dried. Maybe it doesn't show on video, but I can see visually that this seat looks a lot nicer now that it's all dried up. Now, I just want to warn you that, you know, be careful, because not every vehicle has true leather in it, and if you've got like a thin veneer over a backing or whatever, like some cars are, you could potentially cause damage by getting too aggressive with your cleaning here. So do be careful with that. If you notice that you're doing damage, just, you know, stop, you know, change your technique, whatever. This might not work for every car. The brush I used isn't exactly aggressive, but I'm just warning you, I don't want to be responsible for somebody damaging their interior. So, you know, make sure you're using some common sense and testing it in a inconspicuous area and all that good stuff to make sure that you're not going to damage anything. So that's how that door panel came up. It's pretty faded, I think, but you can see a fade line here. It's definitely faded, but it's really not too bad. It cleaned up pretty good. Doesn't look yucky or gross now, at least. And I've still got work to do to the dash and the carpet and everything else, but the seats are done, so